Hi there, my name's Ben and I like to read. Today we're going to be reviewing which is probably a book which is in my top 3 of all time. And again, continuing with the theme of previous videos, another dystopian, totalitarian, if you will, dissident book, the seminal classic of George Orwell, Animal Farm. So a little bit about the author first. As I'm sure some of you are familiar with, George Orwell was actually born Eric Arthur Blair. He's a British author and who spent quite some time actually in his, as a young man. He was initially a writer. He took the exams for civil service and he was posted to Burma where he served as a police inspector for the British colonial authorities. Didn't necessarily enjoy the work too much. He more so immersed himself in the actual culture of it. Did a lot of reading on, the Buddhist spirituality, and actually penned the first of his couple of essays, which essentially explored, the relationship and the interactions that he had, as a colonial administrator and a colonial official, police officer even, in what is now Burma, or Myanmar, if you will. So after that, he decided to become a writer full-time. He also served in the Spanish Civil War, fighting for the Republican side, as he was a democratic socialist. And it's around this time where he, really started to critique the Stalinist, Marxist-Leninist, communist aspect of socialism, and he felt that it was verging on totalitarian, and of course he was vindicated. And in response to that, he wrote a series of books. They're not an official series, but he wrote, of course, Animal Farm, which is a novella about it, which we'll discuss today. And of course, his most famous one is, aside from that, is arguably 1984, which we'll get to in the next video. Now, Animal Farm is a parable. It's a story. On the surface, it may seem almost like a children's book. It's quite literally a story about animals on a farm. It's a very thinly veiled satire of the Russian Revolution that happened in 1917, where the Bolsheviks took over from the Tsarists, and the Russian Civil War, where the White Russians, the so-called anti-communist elements, and the Reds, the communist elements, fought it out for supremacy, with the Red elements, the Bolsheviks, ultimately winning out and creating the Soviet Union, all the way up until, the Great Purges. So essentially, Animal Farm takes place on Mr. Jones's farm, and, the old major, this big, beautiful, majestic boar, this Berkshire boar, he dies after having a prophetic dream proclaiming that all animals throughout England should be free. This inspires the rest of the animals to revolt against the farmer, which they successfully do. They manage to drive him off. He comes back with a bunch of men. They manage to repel him. And after repelling him, they decide, okay, well, this farm is going to be for ourselves. Now we have to run it. We essentially have to build a country. Now, of course, this, again, it may sound a little comical, but they organize themselves into different social strata based on intelligence, of course. The pigs, of course, being the smartest, naturally occupy the leadership positions, and the dogs, are the quote unquote secret police and military. You have the horses, who are Boxer and Clover. Those are their names, who are essentially the models for the proletariat. And you have, of course, the chickens, the sheep, and the other ones. You have a couple of other minor characters. I shouldn't say minor. I would more say politically peripheral characters, such as Benjamin the donkey, who is just as intelligent, if not more intelligent, than the pigs, but chooses not to do anything. You also have Muriel the goat, who can also read like Benjamin and the rest of the pigs. But of course isn't as sharp. And then of course you have the pigs, Napoleon, Snowball, and Squealer as well. Napoleon, of course, being a thinly veiled thinly veiled satire of Joseph Stalin, and of course Snowball being Trotsky and Squealer being, I believe, Vyacheslav Molotov, but I could be wrong. Ultimately, throughout this book, which is, not even 100 pages, it's within this 100 pages, it's so well written. You can really, it starts off so optimistic. You say, yeah, you know what? It makes you feel for the animals. You're thinking, yes, they should be free. This, dastardly Mr. Jones, he's always drunk. He's forgetting to feed the animals, mistreats them all the time. All he does is he'll prefer certain animals over others. So there's a really beautiful mare that he has that he puts ribbons in her hair and feeds her sugar. And then he has a tame raven called Moses, who is, again, a not so thinly veiled satire of the religious elements, who tells the animals about a sugar candy mountain and all of this, which is, of course, another thinly veiled critique of, religion, the promise of heaven, eternal paradise, and so ever. So he prefers those animals to the other ones, and you think, yeah, let's support these animals. I want them to succeed. They succeed, of course, but at what cost? Then, of course, as they start writing out their commandments, all animals are equal. And then you notice the pigs progressively change them. All animals that walk on two legs, their maximum was 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. But then what happens? Chickens have 2 legs only. Certain animals, of course, like snakes and the like, they don't have legs at all. So what's to distinguish? And again, you can really see just the shifting of the goalposts, the changing of the definitions, ultimately boiling down into all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. I love this book. It's in my top 3 for a reason, and a lot of people are off-put by it, not because of its content, but at least from what I've in my discussions with others, it's because they were forced to read it in school. And I mean, again, forcing someone to read is in my opinion not a good way to teach somebody. You have to want to read the book. You can suggest, of course, you can bring the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink it. This is a book that I think everyone should read, and I understand why it's mandatory in schools. It is an important book. Like I said, I love it. I reread it every year. Usually because, again, it reminds me to be skeptical. It reminds me to, value, our freedom, our political freedom, our autonomy. And I think that, unfortunately, because it's sort of been shoved down the throat of a lot of students, you get a small minority of them who really love it, but then you get the majority of the kids who, again, just are not interested in reading it. They're now like, oh, I don't want to ever read it again, and I don't think that's the right way to go about it. It's, if anything, it's sort of ironic that they're being forced to read it. It goes completely against, Orwell's writings and teachings. So it's quite a crass little bit of irony for the education system. But that's perhaps a video for another time. If you're interested in seeing the genesis of a totalitarian state, if you're interested in, if you're interested in satire, however thinly veiled it may be, if of whatever political stripe you may be, this book cannot be skipped out on. Like, you should read it. You really, really should read it. I, of course, neglect to say you have to read it, but you should read it. It is arguably one of the most important pieces of literature ever written. And the fact that all of this, you can span an entire range of emotion, an entire range of history, an entire range of political discourse within, like I said, less than 100 pages. 95 to be exact. You can't get better than that. The language is easy to read. It's funny at times. It fills you with that optimism, that cautious sense of hope. And then it just strips it all away just as quickly. Do not skip out on it. It is a fantastic read, but please let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching.